bit.
It's been real long.
But the good news is that I just put our mics on, so now people can actually hear us.
Oh, yay! So they didn't hear me cussing in the first...
They didn't hear all that. Darn. Go back. Do it again.
Whoops.
We'll do it live.
All right. Well, hello, everybody.
Shane is going to introduce everybody today.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
I'm still working with the OBS did an update, and that's been fun to try to go back and forth from ESO and to live streams and stuff like that. So if there's a lag,
ESO, what does that stand for? Just real quick.
Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, I know what it's for. I just wanted the audience to know because I love that. I love that game, but I just anyone who's out there who plays it on Xbox, please tell me that you play it on Xbox because I haven't played it in almost a year, and I kind of enjoy it, but it's only good to play with other people.
Yeah, I agree. But we are live now with I'm Des from the 12D20, and this is Joe, Mountain Man extraordinaire.
Mountain Man.
I haven't seen you since the beginning of July, so you've grown out your beard a bit.
Yeah, I haven't like sheared myself yet, so yeah.
Is that how that works? You have to use shears.
It's more like just like a very powerful lawnmower.
And of course, we have special guest Shane, which is also Cool Boy Shane from YouTube. And we are very excited. You know, we've been telling people you had announcements, you've been giving teasers on your Twitter account and stuff like that. And it was finally released August 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right. Your first episode of the Peace Guild, episode 1. How are you feeling about that?
Man, I feel like a weight is lifted off my shoulder because I've been sitting on this for so long. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to have it out. The reception has blown me away, and now I'm like energized to work on the second episode. I want to get that out as soon as I can because I want to see if I can do it more quickly than 7 months. Which is what that first video, because I was doing all the assets for the first time. Now I've got some of them, so I don't think it's going to take as long to do the second one.
Well, I've seen it, and I was blown away. Like you said, you did the music yourself. You had a lot of help from your friends and stuff like that. And you know, I am like the bottom of the barrel animator. I don't even call myself an animator because I think that title is like that's golden. But yeah, I mean, you put so much work, and it definitely showed that. It didn't seem like hard work. You made it look easy. Honestly, you made it look really smooth and good. So it's like, but you know, from behind the scenes, when you're telling us that you've worked so hard, I'm like, you produced something really well. But
I really appreciate that. It was not easy. I think like I started like when I was a teenager with like Flash, and I was just digging around on that, and then I released. I was too nervous to put anything on Newgrounds. I knew I'd get like ripped apart, so I just like I had a DeviantArt page at the time, and I would put my little things on DeviantArt. So when I picked it up again later in life, I was starting to slowly. It was like reawakening those parts. But I remember. Oh yeah, I remember doing that. So it was like the learning curve. I had a bit of a step up on it because I had a little experience from way back when. Mm-hmm. But then once I started like learning new stuff I didn't know back then, it was. It wasn't easy.
Well, congratulations again, and you know we have our. I put the link in the chat for Twitch. We have a Discord community, 12D20 Discord community, and there is a link on there to go show Shane some love. That we have that program where we all draw together, and people are still adding to it. So Shane, you can go see. I'll post it on Twitter on Monday. I wanted to give it the weekend because I know people worked on Friday, and it was last minute kind of thing that. We put together. But yeah, Aiden drew his wonderful art, and then Rorik did Item Pouch, and we also have Marzipan. She drew some stuff too. And Bam Tato.
I was at work when I first saw that, and I was just like sitting in the back looking at this like, oh my God, what the hell? Oh my God. My boss is like, hey, you just got sat at this table over here. I'm like, yeah, okay, hold on. I have to take this in for a second,
Let me drink in this beautiful moment.
Yeah. You have fans. We're your fans.
Yeah, like, thank you guys. I'm your fans for being my fan. I don't know.
We're fans of each other.
I'm so new to this whole thing, but like, you guys have been so supportive, and like, I couldn't ask for like anything else. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, man. I mean, you're pretty cool too. Pretty cute.
I try to.
That's why you're called that.
That's why you're called cool.
That's my ideal. I'm just trying to live up to that ideal. That's it. But yeah, I put that on as my Twitter banner, and I'm gonna update it. If people add more stuff to it, I'll update that Twitter banner with the new stuff. Yeah,
stuff has been added to it, and definitely, like, if you're watching right now and you want to add something, definitely go to the community. You'll have to scroll up a little bit. I'll repost that link after this live stream to go ahead and, I might do it now. To go ahead and add to Shane's card or animation, whatever we're calling it. But yeah, so we love it. We and here's his channel, and I'm showing it right now. Oops, if it refreshes itself, 514 views already. That's awesome. That was awesome. Only 2 days ago. Congrats.
You all helped. Everybody who saw it and shared it. I don't have that big of a reach, so that was definitely other people helping me out for sure. I'm just glad that people are enjoying it by and large.
Mm-hmm. And it's just one of many. There's still a lot more to go.
A whole lot more, man.
I'm thinking about all the work I can be like, yeah, what have I done to myself?
No, it's good. It's worth it. You have an audience out there, and that's us. So high expectations, we expect more.
Yeah, I keep raising the bar.
Whoa, now
we've raised the bar.
Disney quality. I'm gonna be very disappointed in you.
Whoa, no, I mean, like, I don't. It's not that I expect or not expect, but I'm not gonna be forcing people to assume that I want like everything done on my time. Like, why isn't it out this week? Why isn't it done this week? Why doesn't it look as good this week? Why isn't it when I rush you, you're not doing better?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're not like that. But seriously, if you don't have anything tomorrow, we'll be messaging you.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that at least you're straightforward with it. I know what to expect now, so thank you.
Yeah, we hold animators. I mean, we love animators at the 12D20. I think that's half of our community is animators, and that's because you guys work so hard. And it's awesome to be your friends and to be your fans too. So, yeah, if you're an animator, I mean, you have friends at the 12D20.
Yeah, come join our this community. It's actually super wholesome and great, and I mean that genuinely. Like, when I go on like a Discord, sometimes I'll join someone's Discord server if they have one, kind of check it out, and like if it's like not really my scene, I'll like, if it's someone that I respect their server, I'll just kind of keep it on there and I'll just mute everything. But this is one I don't mute. I really like this community. More people should.
We like it too. Yeah, it started off as a community for like the 12D20 stuff, like, posting our stuff, but I like how it's grown. Now we're promoting other people, like we're promoting Shane stuff. Coming soon productions, he's about to come out with something too. I won't go into that because I know
he actually animates characters.
He's amazing. He's amazing. And again, I won't go into what he's working on because that's a super secret. But I'm really impressed with his stuff, and it's about promoting each other. I mean, if you have something that you're really proud of, and you one of those things on Twitter, it's like if you don't have like many followers or whatever, even if you have like thousands, like our good buddy Aiden.
Aiden, my boy, my baby boy.
So cool.
So whether you have thousands of viewers or if you have one, you're welcome. I mean, we it's all about promoting each other and everybody's hard work, and Animite Tales too. We're trying to promote as well.
Get to talk to any of us cool people if we are awake or not busy.
Yeah. We have voice chats. If you catch one of us in a voice chat, or you can even put in a general, hey, is anybody up for? I know Joe, sometimes he'll post because he's in the UK, so he's awake at different times.
Like literally 18 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah. So I mean, you can catch one of us. It'll have a little green thing next to our names. You can say, "Hey, anybody up for chatting about RPGs, or anybody want to talk about animation?" We keep it light. We keep it fun. Yeah. So, but I do own that channel. So if I don't like you, I will ban you. I'm not shy.
I don't know how I've lasted this long.
I haven't banned
you
anybody
somehow
yet.
upset Des, who I don't think you've ever used the ban hammer, but I mean that's like your own fault for getting banned. Like it's really hard to upset. I don't know. I'm just saying, like you a fool if you got banned. That's your fault.
It takes a lot to upset me. I'm pretty. I try to be a chill person. I try to be pretty open-minded. But to me, it's like if you're bothering other people and it's really pissing them off, like you can say whatever you want about me. I don't care. I'll get over it. But if once you start making fun of my friends and start going after them and saying weird stuff, then I'm gonna have an issue with that. So, if anything, you have a protector in Des. If you get on the channel,
and you know, how dare you?
A protector. I'm just gonna, yeah. No, I won't beat anybody up. I believe in self-defense.
She'll come across the world and smack down.
I don't believe in violence, but I do believe in self-defense.
And self-defense involves getting on a plane and going halfway across the world and beating your ass. Hey, they started it. I'm finishing it.
I'm finishing it. No. I mean provoked as in, like, if somebody pushes me, I will take them out. Push them back.
So the subject today.
NPCs.
NPCs.
NPCs. So I have a lot of questions. So NPCs, those people that don't know RPGs and getting into it, NPCs means non-player
character.
Thank you. Non-player character. I use NPCs all the time. I use DM, and I don't remember what it stands for. NPC means non-player character, and that is basically somebody that you have players, and you have the GM or narrator, and you have the storyteller, and you have the people that interact with that story. NPCs are somewhere in the middle where it's like the creator of the story creates them as people that give quests, can talk to the players as well. And also NPCs can be combat. They can be bad guys that the storyteller introduces into, or they might have information, or they might just be thugs. It's up to the players to decide sometimes. Or they kill the wrong people.
The players sometimes decide what an NPC is.
Sometimes they decide the wrong things, but as a DM, you just have to flow it. You have to go with it. So my first question is actually for Shane. You know, what kind of RPGs have you played? A video game or a tabletop?
Well, I guess I played a lot of like mainline video games like Pokemon, which. If we're going to talk about, like, okay, let me hold off on that, because I got things to say about Pokemon, but I don't want that to dominate the conversation. But yeah, I played Pokemon, I played Chrono Trigger. Basically, I played, like, things that are Final Fantasy-esque, but not the mainline Final Fantasy games. I don't really care for the combat system in those very much. But, like, if you've ever played The Legend of Final Fantasy on Game Boy from, like, 1990, like, it's not even a Final Fantasy game. It's called Saga, and when they ported it to America, they rebranded it, or overseas, they rebranded it as the Final Fantasy Legend because people like Final Fantasy. It has nothing to do with it. Played those. Those are really fun. And as for, like, tabletop RPGs, I am most experienced with Pathfinder 1E, Dungeons & Dragons 5E. I played a little bit of the Star Wars RPG, Edge of the Empire. Played a little bit of that. My first one was World of Darkness. That was the first one I ever played. That's what got me hooked. And I'm about to start playing Pathfinder 2E. That's going to be later this week. We're going to have our first session, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you were the one that mentioned to me about the new Pathfinder. So Oh, we won't go into that because we're on an NPC topic. But I will. I want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain about that, Shane, later on about Pathfinder, because I'm playing Pathfinder with the group right now, and yeah, you just told me about the new Pathfinder, so I'm gonna have some questions for you later on when we're away from the live stream, though. I'll ask. So this question is for both of you, though, Shane and Joe. So a lot of people go online and they look for different ways to improve their NPCs, like voices and characters. And I know people watch, like me specifically, I'll watch Critical Role for Matt. Like I have no idea what's going on in Critical Role. I literally go online and watch Matt and see what he does for characters, see what he does for different stuff. And that way I can be like, okay, I that's pretty cool. I'll use that and kind of tips and stuff like that. So how do you feel as GMs, DMs, a narrator, to creating different voices for NPCs? Like, do you do that, or do you kind of stay away from that?
I most certainly 100% always do that.
Yep. Same.
And sometimes I confuse myself because some of their voices might be similar, some of them might be incredibly different. For instance, if I can't think of them as something, they either go as the over-the-top English or over-the-top American accent. Like, it's one or the other. After that, it's stuff like they could actually have an Eastern European, or they could actually genuinely have like a Irish accent. It's entirely dependent, or they could actually have like an accent from parts of the different regions of England. For instance, I had one guy who I tried to make him have sort of a Yorkshire accent. I'm not very good at them, but I tried it anyway. And I also tried to get someone who has like a Welsh accent, and then I have someone who has like an Irish accent. So I have like different characters for those different ones. Some of them are just like, oh, this is a character who has nothing to do with like sort of like a northern person, or has nothing to do with someone who's like a Welsh person, but they have these accents just so I can determine who they are. But some of them will be more on the nose, like with their particular voices. So for instance, like if I've got a big strong enemy who is like just sort of like mostly like a hulking creature, maybe they'll be like sort of like very barely being able to talk, like sort of like gravelly voice. And like others are just like more softer, sort of like, don't worry, of course we could help you. Like there's sort of different voices that we go through for like different ones. But my favorite one is just like the really basic sort of characters. Just they're like flatline. They can be used in almost any situation, like sort of like oh, hi, what's up there, or hey man, what's going on. Like all of these different voices that we try and use, like slightly different, but not entirely too much the same, just so that then people can sort of somewhat deter them, but also so that I in my head know who's who when we're all talking. Because at one point they actually, I think they caught on that I have all these different voices, and they were like, okay, so we need to get like these 3 NPCs together. And I was like, okay, why? And it's like, no, we just need information from them. It's like, okay, so you guys, we have this thing. Can you debate this for us? And I was like, you're trying to get me to talk about
the GM, the ultimate split personality. What about you, Shane? How do you handle different NPCs?
So, with voices specifically, I find in my experience that the sillier the voice, the more the party's not going to take them very seriously. The more like my voice it is, the more serious they take it. So if I give them a really super silly or extreme voice, like that's sort of cartoonish in a way, the times I've done that where they tried to kill that character or steal from them or do whatever, like there's definitely a correlation.
Yeah.
So I use that strategically. If I know that, all right, I've got a chaotic, stupid party, and they're going to be messing with whatever stuff I put in front of them, then I give the character I introduce, if I need them to be more serious, more similar to my voice, maybe a little deeper, maybe a little harsher or something like that. Usually, but like I also find that I'm not as experienced DMing as I want to be, and so sometimes I'm juggling so many things I forget to do the accent or whatever for that person's voice.
Yeah.
So I might respond in just my own voice, and I'm like, oh, that was in character, by the way.
That was was this other person, not the other person.
I you know, because I'm usually a player, so when I DM, sometimes you have to switch gears, and I'm getting better at it for sure. But I have those moments where I like slip up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that was this person.
Oh yeah, no, I think it definitely happens to all DMs and GMs alike. You know, at first, like when I was first DMing, I tried to do different voices, and now I have like a total of 3 voices that I can do, maybe 2, clear ones, and I forget them all at the same time. So eventually, like as my sessions progress in one story, the NPCs' voices all end up the same after a while. Maybe if it's a serious, like Joe would say, like if it's a serious conversation, my speed of speech will be slower because they need to know specific information, as opposed to a character that's really, really happy, and so of course they're going to talk really, really fast like I am now. So, and sometimes my voice does get higher to that Pepito voice. I call it my Pepito voice because that's the one other voice I can do well.
I imagine it as the Micah voice.
That's also Micah, yeah. That's the character that I used for Joe's. It's very high up. It's really strenuous. I don't like to do it too long, but because I fall out of it so quickly.
My favorite voices that anyone has ever done for any character in Anime Tales is genuinely Micah.
Do what?
Like Micah is my favorite character anyone has done for a character using the system of Anime Tales so far.
Thank you.
It's good.
But yeah, Micah / Pepito, it's the same voice. A lot of my characters at NPCs end up as the same voice later on. The very first town that my players went into for the Puzzle Traveler, every NPC was different. It was great. And now they're in their 5th town, and every NPC is the same. Because the DM just gets lazy after a while. No.
For me, in the current campaign, we literally just had a moment where all of them went to go see this one NPC called the Watcher. And in this campaign, it's a module called the Super Society. And basically, he has the ability to see anything of the world as long as he's been asked that particular question. So he can't know anything about the future, but he can know about anything that's happening right now, anything that has happened, or anything that, like, could potentially happen, but he cannot tell you what will happen. So it's like, potentially you could do this, potentially you could do that, but that's like, it's all vague. Whereas like other information is like, oh, you've asked me this location, I can tell you exactly where it is. But the downside to the NPC is that not only do you have to be careful, because any question that you ask immediately becomes the question that he charges you. Also, he only allows you to have one question that he charges you for money, and then after that, you're not allowed any other questions. He will not answer another question unless you give him a unique item that is at least, at minimum, uncommon, rare, or legendary. So everyone walked in and is like, are you the Watcher? Yes, I am. Question averted. And it's just like, immediately he got 3 people. It's like, hang on a sec, how is that fair? It's not. That's the point.
That's tedious.
Building up the mood of it, I thought I was going to get a little bit more time, but like immediately all 3 of these guys, like there's 5 of them, and 3 of them ask a question. One of the NPCs that they were with and 2 of the players ask a question that was immediately taken away. So then they had to figure out something that they could give to him. But there was this moment where it's like, during it, I was trying to act out as much as possible. So I was like, this character has his eyes closed, but yeah, he can see you guys. So it's like I had my eyes closed, and I was like, and so all of you must sit down. And then every single one of them are like, ooh, ominous, and they just sit down, except for one player who goes, I'm not sitting. And basically he says, you may ask a question or give me this, that, and the other. And it's like later on, I make a point of it that it's like he's like, someone asks a question, he goes, and he just like looks at them, and it's like, hang on a second, are you in character? It's like, no, he's opened his eyes, and like he's actually opened his eyes. It's like, what does his eyes look like? It's like shining blue voids. Like they're like they look almost vacant, like as if he's like, his eyes are space themselves. And it's like he can now see the truth of what you are and who you are. and everyone was like, "Ooh, this is really good." It was really kind of fun, and like the entire time they were like trying to figure out like what kind of questions to ask. And with that, like NPCs, like you in Animite Tales and in D&D, I know this for a fact, you can create weird and wacky characters that don't necessarily have to have silly voices, but it's like their powers are the weird things. Like there was a character that was like it was in Team 4 Stars, like at TFS at the table, there was like a character who was his name was Scrung, and he was a goblin, and he was like sort of like a grumpy dude. But it was actually everyone else's like attitude around and towards him that made it comical. And it's just like that exact point of like everyone makes jokes about him. It's like, aha, good old Scrung, and he's like really grumpy and grouchy, and he hates everything. It's like, come on, man, you're good friends with us, aren't you? And it's like, let me kill him.
Well, you made a good point in one of your comments before, or you had mentioned that there was an NPC the players were traveling with, which leads into another question of mine. Have you ever had, as a GM, a narrator, have you ever had an NPC follow or journey with your players or group if you were the player? So, who wants to take that question? Joe, you want to take it?
I've done it specifically 3 times on long campaigns. At the moment, we've got one called the 8Cs Journey. Literally just started, so it's an entirely new module where you travel across the 8Cs of Beta. And you have to make a crew of yourselves and also NPCs. And they've got like 4, maybe 5 NPCs on that ship, and then the rest of them are 5 players. So there's around about roughly between 8 and 10, depending on however many people at the time. And they've now finally got 5 NPCs and 5 players, so there's about 10 of them.
So NPCs. So do you have to be the voices for those NPCs?
Yep, I'm the voices of 5 different characters. A tinkerer named Mardi Gras, the shipwright Smithy, the navigator, or potentially the navigator, Jack, and then we have the blacksmith Elizabeth Grey, and then we finally have my brother's character's elder brother known as Ignia. So there's 5 of them on the ship, and I have to remember potentially, if not their voices, at least their speaking patterns. It's so difficult if like everyone goes, what does Smithy think? What does Jack think? What does Ignia think? And I'm like, guys, I know that you're doing this on purpose. It's like, no, we really want to know.
So Shane, you were laughing at that. Shane, you were laughing at that. So what kind of experience do you have? What kind of good memories do you have with that?
Okay. Well, so
or negative.
NPCs following the party, I've done that in my own homebrew campaign. I'm also running a Curse of Strahd campaign right now, where they are basically escorting Irina Kolyana to safety. So she's with the party. Now, the biggest problem I have is that we sometimes forget she's there. That's the biggest issue sometimes. But like when you have it's easier when you have like a more boisterous or more like someone with a stronger personality following the party, because then people are very interested. So in one of my homebrew campaigns, I made a character. His name was Matasa Makari, and he was this exiled prince, and their whole deal was like they were going to help him overthrow the guy that overthrew his father so he could become the sultan again. And so as they're like going through these like quests and stuff, I didn't really forget about Matas, but every time his turn would come around, everyone would be like, oh, it's his turn. So they'd have to wait. So sometimes players can get bored when it's the NPCs going, and it's just me fighting myself.
Yeah.
Like, his turn's almost over. Hold on. People don't really care about that. But when it's like a character that's, Matas is sort of like just like a more boring version of Aladdin. Like he's not like that interesting, but he has a cousin. And
imagine Aladdin, but boring.
Aladdin, but boring.
But then he's got a cousin named Bolo, who is not boring. Bolo runs a general goods store, and they love Bolo because they come in, and Bolo goes, "Hello, welcome to my shop," and he's like got this really high pitched, really energetic thing. And I've used this NPC in like 2 different campaigns, and both times they start out not liking him because he's so kind of annoying at first, but like he's just so cheerful that they just can't hate him. They're like, you know what, I like Bolo because he gives them deals, and he's just like, they'll make fun of him and he goes ha ha ha, and they'll laugh with him. You can't really enjoy making fun of this guy.
Have you ever had a people hate an NPC that you played?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Do tell.
They, like in the Christmas Crowd game right now, they hate Irina.
Okay.
Because like that's my fault because I haven't really played her the way that I need to be, and I'm doing better now. Like there was this really great moment last game where they got surrounded by a bunch of these like blights, and so they're fighting blights, and they're actually getting kind of overwhelmed, but Irina's with them, and I got some really clutch rolls where she just like killed like 3 blights in like 2 turns. Everyone's like, man, Irina's really doing well, and I'm like, yes. Like I want them to like have an attachment to her, you know.
NPC.
Yeah, she was doing really well, and so like I'm kind of turning them around to actually liking her. I think the longer they're with that character, if that character starts proving useful, and it's not you shoehorning in the usefulness, if it's them just demonstrating it organically, I think that's a way to get characters to care about NPCs more for sure.
I think for me though, it's been definitive. It's been definitive for most people, like whether or not they like a character. But then some characters will be liked more than others by different players, depending on their like personalities. Like a character that I've had in like 3, maybe even 4 campaigns is a guy named Jimmy Grum, and Jimmy Grum is like literally like this big ogre of a man. Like he's what's known as like a husk. He's like a big like monster hulking creature. He's like 8 feet tall. He's like huge thing, but he lives underground out of his choice, but he basically is the greatest blacksmith in the city, and people go there to get things made for him, but he has no issue with whether or not they're heroes, villains, or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I'll make them for you. And he's sort of like the way that I play him. I've always played him in like a way of like he goes like, oh, hello, welcome to my shop. If there's anything you need, please ask me. And he has this one ability that he can look at someone and immediately tell what their ability is because of that thing. So if you're a human, he'll know because his power can't allow him to see that you have superpowers. If you're an anomaly or a superhuman, he can tell exactly what superpowers you have. That's literally the extent of his ability, but it makes it great because he can then help people figure out what is best for their like powers and what is best sort of like weaponry or armor or clothing that they can make.
That makes sense.
And he can make armor, he can make weaponry. He does sell some basic like firearms, but he's not like a tinkerer, so he only like buys things so that he can then sell them on. But there's been this moment where like almost at any point a guy in the team will go, I think we need to go to Grum's, and everyone will be like, yep, no, we definitely need to go to Grum. They go there and they're just like, Jimmy, what else have you got for us? It's like, oh, welcome. And it's like everyone immediately loves him. But the character that I've had at one point that everyone has hated, I'd have to say it was like this one campaign that I did where recently we had a character who was called basically his name's Jack, and everyone really likes Jack because he was really helpful. But then during like a tragic incident where one of the other NPCs loses their arm, and like one of the players is actually like their character is in love with this like NPC, and is like, oh, I rush her to the hospital and like try and get them to help treat her because like she's bleeding from like her wound. Mm-hmm. She's like missing her right arm, and then like Jack bursts in and is like, what happened? What have you done? And then like he's like this guy who's like brought her here, he's like known for violence and he's known for anger, and so he immediately points the blame to him, and he's like, don't you tell me that I've done any of this. This is not me. It's like she's like the best person in my life. And it's like immediately there was a standoff for like these 2 super beings. And it was just like at some point one of them is going to kill the other, and then immediately the whole thing was diffused. But since then, and that's like 4 weeks ago, since then they have not spoken to each other. They've not been in the same room, and anytime that any of them are, one of them leaves. And so on this session they were like, like we have like a guy who's basically a living MacGuffin who could send this thing to another dimension? It's like, yeah, Jack, he has like spatial powers. Oh yeah, we could ask him. And then immediately the strongest one in the team's like, nope, not doing it. Hate him. And it's like, well, we could probably talk him out of it or talk him into it. And it's like if he's on the team, I leave. And they're like, no, but Donkey's like so powerful.
yeah, getting players to kind of love an NPC or hate an NPC, unfortunately, sometimes you just got to leave it up to them. And they, you might have, as a GM narrator, you just have to hope for the best, hope they don't kill themselves, or blow up a tavern with 12 other people. But so being a GM, a DM narrator, there's a lot of improv that goes along with that. You have to think on the fly. You have to, if a player asks you a question, you have to be like, oh yeah, I totally know that whole lore of that one building that I didn't remember that we had. But and so do you have, like, I know I have files and files that I have my binders behind me of different stuff like NPCs and different cities and countries and stuff like that for homebrews and different stuff that I've played not only as a storyteller but as the player too. Do you have like files and stuff like that? Or do you, like, there are some GMs that literally make it up on the fly and then they write down as they're going. What is your process to help you not go insane when thinking of NPCs and all that jazz?
I mean, you probably already know the answer to this for my part anyway, which is with mine, it's literally I either write everything down and already have it, or I basically make it up on the spot and then write it down afterwards. Like if I have to come up with something on the fly, it's like, so we wanted to ask this question about this particular thing, and I'm just like, okay, so it was. Let me check my notes, and I'm just flicking through blank pages until I can improvise something. I'm like, close it, because I'm like, I need to just now make them believe that I've read one thing and like everything is unlocked.
That one little sentence brings back a flood of memories.
I did that today. I was like looking through blank pages. Yes, so the person that you're actually looking for is a guy named, and like sometimes I'll know it, sometimes I will know who they have to, just to hold them in suspense or just to jog my memory. But there will be moments where I'll just like, so like, where exactly is this? And I'll be like, okay, let me draw the map. There will be moments where I'm just like, so why can we do this but we can't do that? I'm like, oh well, that's simple. It's because. And then I just blurt out a contrived reason as to why it can or cannot work in that way. Like today, they were like, hang on a second, there's so many superheroes in this city. Can't we just get them to do this? And it's like, no, the government is making the top 15 superheroes a final deterrent to save the government. In other words, anyone who is part of that, they're like, no, we need these powerful, like, godlike beings to be around us at all times so that then we can like have people rescued. But we don't want to cause panic. And if we have panic in a city where there is hundreds of people who have special abilities, superpowers, weapons, and all this sort of stuff, like it is working. But the second that we say, by the way, there could be an explosion that could vaporize 50% of the population or like destroy all of technology within like this amount of time, panic would go wild and there'd be looting and stuff. And that would be too much for even like the superheroes to be able to stop. And so they're like, well, the top 5 like governmental figures, they're like, we want these superheroes to be able to be here to defend us. So like that was that was the contrived reason, and I had to come up with it on the spot today, earlier today. So like if any of my players are watching, I just made that up because I didn't want you guys thinking, hang on a second, this guy can literally turn his entire body into electricity, why doesn't he help us?
So Jane, do you have a method?
I do. I have 2 methods. Mm-hmm. So the first one is I create characters, and the process of how I do that is different for every character, but a lot of times I get inspired by a piece of artwork or some sort of mechanic of the game. I'm like, oh, I want to play this. Oh, that's better as a villain. all right, it'll be a villain. And then or like music. I play music during our campaigns to kind of set the mood.
Nice.
And so I've got playlists of different like settings, like if you're in the Feywilds or if you're in a city or something like that.
Quick question, are these playlists that you've created, like, or are they playlists that you found?
I've created them. I've like over the years gathered MP3s from different games and different shows and all sorts of stuff that I think fit for these like locations or these situations. And so I've got like a tense moments playlist. I've got a creepy playlist, and undead specifically. Goblin has their own playlist, so it's all like goblin music.
Nice.
So like I'll hear a song, and then I'll think of a villain that fits that song, or I'll think of an NPC that fits that song, and I'll be like, oh, I got to make this happen. So I'll like create that person. So when they come out, I play the song, and then everyone like, oh, okay, this is like a special character. Like
Nice.
people can kind of like figure it out. For some characters, this has worked amazing. So in one of my homebrew campaigns, this is a Pathfinder game a long time ago, but they were all in a gladiators arena, and everyone was like level like 7 or 8 or something. So they were pretty decently high level, at least for us. Like we never really get past 10. Like that doesn't usually happen. And then they're in this basically a tournament. There's like 3 tournaments. There is a champions fighting tournament, and then there is a magic tournament, and then there's just like a the battle royale where it's just like everybody, including the champions, just it's gonna be great. So when the magic tournament comes along, like everybody was like, oh, we'll do the champions thing, we'll do the battle royale, that's fine. For the magic tournament, I was like, anyone want to do the magic stuff? And everyone's like, no, we're okay. And one of my players was like, I want to do it. I'm like, you are a ranger.
Oh my gosh.
Like utility spells, and you use a spear. You're not really like a wizard or anything. He's like, no, I got spells.
I got this.
Okay. So he goes in, and the tournament literally is just him against like the reigning champion. Like I guess he went up against like, it was like 4 guys. Then they went up against each other. Then he went up against the main guy, and his name was the Nullifier. And he has like these tattoos around his eyes, and his eyes are like this ghostly white color. He's like bald, and he wears like this robe, and he's an ugly dude, and like he has his own like theme music. So when he beat the other guy, he just like killed the guy.
Oh my
God.
God.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, you're fighting that guy, are you intimidated? He goes, no, I'm fine.
That's
All right, so
cool.
we get into it. I play the music, I set the mood, I've got his stats with me, and he doesn't know that basically the reason he's called the Nullifier is that you can't cast when he's around. So he goes, everyone gets 2 rounds to prepare whatever spells they want to cast, to prepare themselves, and then they start. So he does like some sort of mage armor or whatever, and he's like got his things prepared. The character that my friend was playing was like, yeah, I don't do anything. I'm like, are you sure? You've got 2 rounds. Are you sure? He goes, yeah, I'm fine. And so the crowd's already booing because he's not doing anything. Like, then they start, and he goes, all right, I'm gonna cast Longstrider. And I'm like, could have done that during 2 rounds. All right, well, the Nullifier counterspells it. He goes, what? His name's the Nullifier.
Was he not? Well, I mean, not only that, but was he not aware of counterspells?
So he's just getting his ass handed to him because this guy's like shooting acid arrows, just toying with him. He can't even he's got a spear. He's trying to use magic to make himself like be able to get into melee range. Everyone's like, boo, that's not magic, that's fighting, boo, kill him. So like eventually the Nullifier opens up an acid pit underneath him. Like it's his highest spell that he can cast. It's just a pit. And I'm like, make a deck save. And everyone's like, you idiot. Why did you enter the magic tournament? Why did you do that?
There goes our ranger.
Yeah, he got out of it alive somehow, but he lost. And he wasn't able to make it to the next round. Everyone's just shaming it. He does stuff like this all the time where he makes very questionable decisions.
But that makes it interesting. Like, we have so many amazing players, but like we actually have, like, in the Super Society campaign at the moment, we actually have it because in Enamount Tales you have threat ratings. and the rating goes from it has five scales on one and 5 on another, and it goes from 1 to 5, 1 being the weakest, 5 being the highest, and then it goes alpha, beta, gamma, omega, and zeta. And although those are 2 different like weird alphabets, it's because in their world they use these as like different like zonings for each different threat. So it's not only just in game, but it's also in lore. That's what they've named them. And the threat level,
different things. They measure like one measures usefulness to like certain groups, and then one measures like destructive capability.
So yeah, so I mean, for instance, you could be like an alpha 5, which means that like he's like, oh, you're a human who's like really good at like fighting and using like different abilities, but it's like you're not a firearms user, and the amount of stuff that you can do is very minimal. You're sort of like potentially level 5, like you're very dangerous, but considering that you don't have any weaponry, that makes you any more dangerous, or you have to rely on weaponry. But as the scales go up, the destructive capability or the danger goes higher and higher and higher until you get to Zeta, which is basically like potentially country all the way up to continent or potentially world destruction. And there's a moment where they were like, oh, so the number 2 hero and the number 1 hero. The number 1 hero must be the most powerful and the most dangerous, and yet we're talking to the number 2 hero. So therefore, this guy must not. There must be something about him that makes him weaker. And then eventually, they found out that sort of like in the politics of it, he just said to him, I don't want to be the number 1 hero because like I'm not the perfect fit for it. I am too. Like my powers are too volatile, they're too dangerous to be actually able to be used at their fullest potential. And it's supposed to be the fact that like it makes you think that it's like potentially the ranking is not everything. Right. Like the number 3 hero is actually a guy who can turn into a wasp or a wasp hybrid. He's really good at the skill of it, but his destructive capability is like 0. Like he can fight really well, but he couldn't like destroy buildings or like throw cars or anything like that.
Right. This is
very, why
not? Reminds me a lot of like One Punch Man or My Hero Academia.
It's sort of between those two. Plus, it's similar to also like DC, where it's like, oh, Batman is technically like one of the biggest threats because give him enough time and he can beat even people like infinitely strong like Superman, or ridiculously destructive like Darkseid, or insanely unstoppable like Flash or whatever. But then they were like, so I met the number 2 hero. Surely he's not that bad. And it's like, oh, he's known as the most powerful man on Earth. It's like, so my brother and I built this guy from the ground up. He has flame mimicry at the highest level, and it's like, so his entire body is fire. If you hurt him or if you punch him, you do any physical damage, it just basically, it's the same as punching fire. It's not like Human Torch where his entire body ignites. It's the atoms and the molecules of his body generate heat, and because they're so excited, they can separate, meaning that he's practically intangible. So if you punch him, it does nothing to him. If you try and attack him with fire, he's immune to fire. Like there's all of these different things. Like he's got states of immunities. And it's like water and I think it was like water, lightning, and energy are the only things that could do anything to him, because that he has no resistance against lightning or energy, but he also has a weakness to water. So it's like, okay, none of us have that ability. We're all physical fighters.
And one of them, a pail of water.
One of them was like, oh, I'll fight him, and eventually realized that the clothes that he's wearing aren't getting burned. And they're like, hang on a second, his suit is like a containment suit. If I just try and like take off his clothes, I can wrap my hands around it and punch him.
Roll for charisma at that. No.
And like they grabbed like he like ran past him, and he's like, oh, he tries to dodge out of the way because he thinks that you're attacking him. It's like, no, I'm trying to get right past him and grab the back of his like his suit. And he's like, I then roll Dex to like try and whip it off of him, and it's like he barely even needed to get all that high of a roll. I was like, oh, I think I've failed. I've only got a 10. It's like, no, you do it. Why? Because his body is flame. Like the fire just like puffs out of the jacket as you like whip it off, and then it reforms back into the undershirt. And then he's like, I wrap my hand in this and I go to punch it. It's like it does nothing. Like, but whilst you're wrapping your hand in this stuff, you now no longer take passive fire damage back to yourself, because instead of punching fire, you're punching fire with like a fireproof like glove.
Right.
Hey, keep it.
Like you would need water, because then his atoms could not separate to become fire, they'd go back to a human form.
Exactly.
And he'd be vulnerable.
Exactly. But they also then like said, like at the end of it, because he gave them like 6 rotations, which in game it was like, go, you have 60 seconds, go. And it was like, okay, each guy had like 6 rotations. And at the end, he was like, charisma roll, and he was like, congratulations, you did it. You are definitely worthy of being the number 2 hero at the very least. And he goes to shake his hand, and he like puts on his glove, like he puts on this glove to like contain the fire, and he goes to shake his hand. He's like, well done. It's like, you won in a charisma roll, and it's like, congratulations, you've not died against this guy.
Right.
And the thing is, we've built him because that my brother has a character who's literally going to have to fight him soon, 1-on-1. He has to go 1-on-1 with this guy. And the damage that he showed to do is like 1d10, but because of the system, he does, at maximum, 5d10s of fire damage, meaning that he can do up to 50 points of fire damage. And then, because that he's level 10 on his power, he then gets this ability called Star Mimicry. So he can basically turn into literally a sun, like a miniature sun. And so he does energy and fire damage, and it's double. So it's like 10d10s of fire / energy damage. So whatever you have the highest resistance to, the one that you have the lowest resistance to is the one that you take the damage of. So it's like, I have flame immunity, energy damage.
Yeah, NPCs, I've made powerful NPCs that just mess up somebody. Like they can destroy a group. And that's another thing, as you know, as a GM and as a DM, making NPCs that are balanced. You know, if you have a powerful player versus everybody else that's not as powerful, so you have to make kind of a balanced boss. And I think that's a fun thing. Try not to kill the rest of the group.
On the other side, though, my other answer, because I said I had 2
ways.
Yeah,
you have 2, yeah.
One is making the stat blocks, and then that's can be a nasty surprise for people. Also, knowing what they know, having that written down, so if they ask you questions, if it's not there, be like, I don't know, and then that helps me keep them in the dark about certain things.
That's a good idea.
But then there's times when I make an NPC I didn't plan on making, like when we did a random encounter in Curse of Strahd, and they found a were-raven on the side of the road that was injured, and they decided to heal him. And I'm like, well, if he's a were-raven, he's part of the Mardukov clan in that world. So he's a Mardukov. And I was thinking of a name. So they're like, what's your name? And I was like, Tony. And they're like, Tony? Your name's Tony. Yeah, I'm Tony. Short for Antonio Mardukov. How's it going? So I basically made him a New Yorker. And he's just like, he's wearing like a white wife beater, and he's got a pompadour and a comb. And he's just, hey, I'm a were-raven. Hey, how's it going? So they love him.
Oh
and gosh. I didn't plan that, and he's just one of the
just hearing that one story, one story, like, I don't know what I need to do to get in your games now. But here's the thing. So I have one more question before we're gonna wrap it up. And I really I like this question. So I struggle with making homebrews and giving way too many mini quests. Like, I have, one main quest, but then I fall in love with different NPCs as a DM. I'm like, oh, they need to be in the lives of my players. And I make, like, insignificant quests, and I have a bad habit of making too many mini quests. So, like, there have been times, like, I had to sit down with some of my players and say, hey, what do you have as quests, and what do you think is the main quest? And there was actually a time I actually sat down with them, and we panned it out, and I literally, like, said, okay, some of these might appear at the next session, and some of these might have resolved themselves because, sometimes it's too much. So, in your opinion, Shane and Joe, how do you feel about minor NPCs? We're not talking about major NPCs. We're talking about minor NPCs giving mini quests. Do you think they distract too much from a main quest, or do you think it helps build players? And it's totally up to you if you have a different answer than that on how you feel.
I'd say the easiest one to do is similar to that of take an instance from the video game system where it's like a basic fetch / infinite quests. Basically a quest that someone could be given, and it's like they can do in their own time. There's no time factor, there's no time limit. If there is an end goal where it's like they can fail it, then just state, like, by the way, if you don't get this and it's destroyed, then don't bother coming back, because that I ask you to get this object. For instance, we have this one where literally it's known as it's known as the Gauntlet of Calamity, and it's literally an experimental hand that was taken off of a power armor that has like little holes in them, and it was made for an experimental technology of a high power armored soldier, because some of them kill superhumans, take their powers, place them into what's known as single stones, and then they use them to power their artifacts, so they power their suits. Well, this one prototype was literally a gauntlet that you could put multiple stones into and then use multiple powers at once, or at least have the onslaught of them.
That sounds familiar.
I've never heard of anything
I've never,
like that.
well...
No, exactly. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But the concept of it was the idea of that the guy who sells it to you, he's like, bring it back to me every day with a new stone inside, and I'll place a new place, and until you get 7. And it goes all the way down the arm until it is literally that big. It's one size fits all, similar to the Iron Gauntlet. If no one knows what I'm trying to talk about, it is a rip-off of the Infinity Gauntlet. As a matter of fact,
just to be truthful,
as a matter of fact, it's called the Singularity Gauntlet because they use single stones. But there is actually a second factor to it. I'm getting attacked by flies now. There is a secondary factor to it where if you put the right stone into it, you can then place more stones into it to forge them into like double-powered stones. And the snap that you can do with it, because there's one snap where it's like you do it and all of the stones activate at once. And if you do, you potentially take half of the amount of damage that you're supposed to deal out onto yourself, but then all of the amounts of damage affects like an entire like amount of range. So it's like whatever the maximum like range on one of those stones is, like the highest range of that stone is the maximum range. So 100 meters, I could blast a radius.
Was this the main quest? Or was it like
no? This was a side quest.
That is a really, really freaking cool side quest.
Because at any point, like, there's no time limit to it. There's nothing that affects too much. And to be honest, getting those stones are quite difficult because each one, if you buy the stones, they're actually quite difficult to come by and expensive. Or you have to technically go the villain route and kill your opponents and take their powers, placing them into stones. So either way, it was that concept of like, yeah, do this and you're technically a villain, but the guy is only looking for like anything. So you could come back to him and be like, oh, I know that I said that was going to come back, but like, and it's been like 3 weeks in game, but could you upgrade this gauntlet now? And it's like, yeah. So personally, I think it should be technically an ongoing quest that doesn't necessarily need to affect something. Like that, it could be as simple as like, yeah, get me materials for my next build and I'll like do a discount on the next thing that you buy, or like mini quests could basically be something that has no time limit, no cost effectiveness. Like if you're doing it, it could be something that you could do in your downtime. Like, oh, like not all of us need to go off into this next session, so only a few of us are going to do this, or only a few of us are going to do that.
That's a good
something where it's simple, or at least it's good enough where everyone don't need to worry about like how many resources they're using whilst trying to do to it. That makes sense.
No, that's a good example.
Yeah, I think it depends also like what kind of campaign you're in too, because if you're in a campaign that's going to allow for downtime, that's the perfect thing. Like you could have mini quests where someone's like, all right, well, during my downtime, I'm going to focus on collecting this resource I need for my spells or whatever. It's like, that's perfect. Like I've played a lot of games where there's a like pressing issue that needs to be handled now, and if you don't handle it now, then it's like the world ends. I don't know why my friends always seem to be playing these kinds of games, and I seem to DM them too as well. So we generally don't have a lot of like downtime in the games that I play. So whenever there is a side quest, we really have to weigh like, do we really want to devote time to this, or can we just skip this and keep going on the main thing? And so like we have to sort of arbitrate. So my advice for a game like that would be, if you're going to give a side quest, make it look like a side quest, but make it like important somehow. Like make it the thing that it does actually affect the main quest in some way, like tie it back. So like Curse of Strahd has a lot of stuff like that. Like if you rescue this girl from drowning in a lake, that's a side quest, and it can be activated the moment they reach the lake. You don't have to do it while they're not at the lake. Like it's whenever they get there. Oh, you see a guy on a boat with a potato sack, and the sack is writhing around. I wonder what could be in there. Oh, maybe it's the little girl you heard was missing, and you hear like muffled screams. So like if they choose to save the girl and bring her back to the Vistani camp, now the Vistani won't hinder them, which before they would, and would make the main quest harder. So it actually comes around and helps them later on. So like if you do stuff like that, it can make side quests better. If it's just like a fetch quest, like I need this material, that's a downtime thing. I agree. You can just do that. Like, all right, well, while you're in this area, how do you guys spend your time? Okay, well, you're going to do this. You make a check. Okay, you find the thing you're looking for, or something like that.
I think to go off of those two exactly, just real quick, it's what you said, Shane, but it was also similar to what you said, Des. Like at the time limit thing, or like, oh, that quest does not activate, or at least that part of the side quest or a side part of that quest does not activate until you reach it or you're able to hear or see it. So in other words, there's no time limit. But then, as you said, Des, if people don't get around to it, it just solves itself. Or when it does solve itself in a way that doesn't negatively affect either of the either side. Like, if you wanted that little girl to drown, or if you wanted that little girl to survive, then it's like she turns up like alive because that she was going to be drowned, but she somehow escaped. And it's like, and it would be at the end of the.
So she doesn't die, but you still don't get the benefits of saving her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It happens too little, too late. Like, in other words, like it's not it doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, but it also doesn't have to necessarily affect you in good ways either. Like, it's not like, oh no, you don't get the bonus for it because you're already speaking to these like factions, and somehow someone gets like a really high roll, so therefore it was okay anyway.
And Curse of Strahd's unique too because it's gothic horror, so they actually impose penalties on you. So there's another side quest where when you reach this village, you have 3 days to act on this one side quest about a coffin maker who stole some bones. These bones are like holy bones of a saint that used to be at this church, and the church used the bones to consecrate its area to make it like a sanctuary for people from like the night. Well, now that the bones are gone, the sanctuary is gone, and so it's vulnerable. You have 3 days. If you don't get the bones back in 3 days, Strahd comes and fucks up the church, and then that's it. The church is gone. So that's a penalty because you didn't act in time, right? And it's like you have all these other things you want to do, so it's sort of like you're doing one thing is an opportunity cost where you didn't do that other thing, and then now there's that penalty. And if you try to do too many, you kind of put yourself at risk. Some people could die. Maybe you die, in a game like that, it's supposed to be gothic horror, so it fits. But in a like high fantasy game, that might feel a bit unfair to the players. So it's kind of up to you, the DM or GM, whether or not you want to make it that high stakes. It could make more sense if it's like end game, people are higher level now, and there's all these things are coming to a head, and so now it's like do or die. You got to figure out what you're going to devote your resources and your time to. But like starting out like level ones, if you do that to level ones, it's kind of like it almost feels like it's unfair. So it just depends on what you want to do with the tone of your campaign, I think, as well.
I know I said that was the last question, but I'm having a lot of fun with this conversation. So I added another question as you guys were talking. So because this is why I definitely love talking to Joe, and we love having guests, is to pick y'all's brain, and to I'm a new DM myself, so for my personal a question about bigger NPCs, bigger bosses, how do you activate them? So let me give you an example. So I did my first homebrew, which is the Puzzle Traveler, and that's our main game that we do. But so what I had is I knew that she was going to attack every single country. I made it suspenseful for me as the GM by rolling before every session to see when she actually sent out her armies. And unfortunately for the players, they had already been only been a week together, so they barely knew each other. And I rolled for her armies. She got a natural 20. I was like, all right, well, she's sending out the armies. And I was like, well, they're in a human town. Let's see what the king does. And I rolled for him, and he rolled a natural 1. I was like, okay, well, he doesn't know shit. So So before the session, like an hour before the session, I did that, and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And that's when they found people disappearing. That's when they found out that, oh crap, tieflings are about to take over, and that there's like, well, they're not getting any word that this is happening. What the hell? And so it's like, for me, I make it suspenseful for myself. And so I rolled for the main boss, and I rolled for the town or area that they're in to see how the town reacts. Have you guys ever done that, or do you let the players activate the boss, the main boss?
I mean, I've kind of done both. I know Bill has done both as well. I mean, for instance, like the whole quest of like trying to find Norman Sexbang, like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys had to journey over an entire desert, and there was like things where it's like, oh, by the way, weather happens, or you go over to this thing and then these creatures, they live there, or oh, you touch this plant and it turns out this plant can move, or you know, like personally, like if anyone ever gets a chance to like play Animite Tales, either on the server or like actually gets to like have this game, definitely check out any of the campaigns to do with Engine Linear, because my brother does most of those and he is awesome at doing it.
He is amazing. Will is so amazing.
my things are a bit linear, but his are like open world in those particular modules. Like we have got a few open world modules, but like his are so good that I just like, I really wish that I could come up with the weird sort of thing. It takes him a lot longer than it takes me, but it's because that like I have like quality in the terms of like little bits, and then there's just too much quantity. So it's quantity over quality. But like one thing that I will say is for me, I've done one now. Spoilers for anyone who is ever going to play the Super Society module. Like skip 5 minutes at the very least, because like this is a spoiler. Okay, 3, 2, 1. At the beginning of the campaign, you start in a tavern. At the end of the campaign, you fight a man who can turn into a dragon, and it's in an underground dungeon that is like ancient under the city. So in other words,
Tuesday night.
Yeah, so in other words, it's supposed to be based off of the Dungeons and Dragons sort of system. Most people, stereotypical. Yeah, you start up in a tavern and you end up fighting something in a dungeon, most likely a dragon.
I love how you're calling this a spoiler.
It is. It's literally a spoiler. But anyway, so the concept of it is that the main guy actually has a bomb under the city somewhere. And he moves it every now and again just in case if people do try and go down to the underground tunnels. But the way that it states is the second that you activate this quest, which is basically once you fight one of the first enemies in part of the gang, word gets out and you have 5 to 7 days before the bomb goes off. Now they are not forewarned how long, unless if they somehow get like an amazing find out in like knowledge. But like the main thing that they get is someone tells them about like, oh, radiation is up like by a certain amount. Like what kind of radiation? And it's like, oh, this radiation that is only usually found in like Animite, but it's like small amounts, so it usually wouldn't be effective. But outside of the city, it's nowhere. So it's literally that concept of like, okay, so with like figuring out, like with having animatology or Animite knowledge or anything like that, or even world knowledge, you eventually realize that like, based on this, it would take a certain amount of days before like this gets so bad that it could potentially just affect the entire populace. And so it's like, okay, we need to work now. And so at the moment they're on their last 32 hours before everything goes down, before the explosion happens, and then they failed. Now it won't necessarily kill them because most of them are super beings, so they're already affected, but it could potentially do some damage to them and just destroy a large portion of the city, especially affecting all of the electronics in the city. So therefore it could just horribly ruin and disfigure the entire like city entirely. So that's how I got it there. And the entire time they're trying to find out more and more, and each thing that they find out, something else happens. But the main final boss sits in front of that bomb waiting for the final explosion, because he has like all confidence that if it does go off, he'll be safe. And so it is that exact moment of like, everyone needs to work together to find this guy before it's too late.
That's pretty cool. Time limit.
Yeah, we have that. That's on one of them. Like, we don't often have time limits for many of them. Usually we do have it based on activation, or we have it that like it's a D100, and then within that area / campaign or module, we just go, here are all of the different encounters. If you get this number, this bad thing happens. If you get this number, this good thing happens. Like it's dependent. We have a lot of different things. But yeah, that's how it works. Like that's how like some of the modules work.
Shane, how do you activate bosses, or do you let the players activate the boss?
So I don't do roles between NPCs like behind the scenes. I have things set up like dominoes, and not that that's wrong or anything. You do you. Like there's no wrong way to do it. But for me, it's like I let the players stumble into situations like a cutscene waiting to play. But then after it starts playing, all bets are off, right? It's what they do affects what happens next, right? So as a player, one of my favorite moments in any campaign, which I may animate at some point because I really like.
Expectation. Now you have to.
Oh, I just might. So this is a continuation of my first video with it had those 4 characters that went into the dungeon, and then 2 of them like got swept away by the river. The other 2 that didn't get swept away, those 2 guys died. Those 2 didn't. So we made new characters, and they met up with them, and then that group kind of kept going forward. Well, the boss of that dungeon was a woman, only called by the name the Mistress, and we dived into the dungeon fighting goblins, and we eventually get to this underground abandoned dwarven city, and we like fight the goblins, and they're alchemists throwing bombs and stuff, and we're hiding behind abandoned buildings and stuff, and eventually like I'm playing a necromancer, and I'm able to channel negative energy, and I like just kill a bunch of goblins. I'm expended, everyone's expended, some of us are low on hit points, so we hide out in a building so that we can take a rest and try to like recoup some of our hit points. While we're resting, we hear this.
Of course. Crap.
And I'm like, no, what is this? What's going on? And we're all looking at each other like, who is that? And we look out, we like part the curtains. And it's like there's this big tunnel, like a mine shaft that goes out of this cavern. And it's just darkness, and you hear the clap echoing, and then you see the silhouette of this woman emerge, and all these goblins behind her, all of them with their weapons out,
no.
ready to go.
Oh, jeez.
Well. That's an entrance, man. Like, so it was waiting for us to do something before we activated that final boss. She captures us. She thinks that we're just like nobodies. I mean, we're only level 3 at that point, so we are. And so she put us in these cages that are all around this like, it's like a gladiatorial arena. I love gladiator arenas. I don't know why we're having them in our campaigns, but in the middle they have what's called the Barbazoo, or bearded devil, chained up by planar like dimensional locks, and they'll take people out of cages, throw them in there, and be like, fight for your life, and they always lose. The Barbazoo always kills them, and it's for the entertainment of the goblins. And there's this one area where the mistress sits at her throne, and she's wearing like this tiara, and she's just like entertaining herself. This is all for her fucking sick amusement, right? So pardon my language. I hope that's okay.
Sorry.
But what we ended up doing was I was a cleric, so I was able to use Know Your Enemy, the spell in Pathfinder 1E, to figure out the weaknesses of the Barbazoo. And we devised the strategy. So when our time came up, and that was like a day later, we had a day to like get all of our hit points back. We go in there, and the werewolf Zed just hulks out and then like tries to hold him while these bearded tentacles are like stinging him and dealing damage, and he's taking damage, and this guy's still trying to like, he's got this werewolf around him, but he's still trying to hit with his glaive and stuff, and everyone's dodging out of the glaive and doing that, and I've got like skeletons. I'm like, get him!
Go.
So we're trying to kill this guy, and when we end up doing it, all the goblins are getting like angry, and they look like they're about to rush us. So we, are able to escape.
Yeah.
And as we're running, we have this wizard with us, and his whole deal of being here, the reason he came into here is he's looking for the tiara that this mistress is wearing. And he goes, I'm gonna go get it. And we're like, you're crazy. We leave. So we're running away. And we get out, and we're like, well, he's dead. What's going on in the background is our GM does some rolls with him, and he's like, all right, well, I sneak. So this wizard, this really weak level 3 wizard, is sneaking
level 3
behind the mistress, who's like shouting orders to goblins and stuff. and he is able to use his staff to like knock the tiara, because it kind of juts out from up the head, so he like knocks it off. He had to get a really high roll, and he got it. So she's about to cast fireball on him, but all the goblins turn on her. The nature of the tiara is this special artifact that when you kill a being wearing the tiara, you adopt the properties of that being in regards to the attitudes of the people or creatures around you. So she killed the goblin's boss. And then became the boss. They treated her like he was the boss.
Cool.
That is amazing.
So once it got knocked off, she like got surrounded by goblins. So she, instead of killing the wizard, she turned around, fireballed the goblins, and he took the tiara and ran. And he got out. And it was one of the coolest moments. I was like, how did you do that?
That is amazing.
Like, yeah, so that was the setup had nothing to do with rolls. He just had the domino pieces. This is something I definitely took from him. But once those dominoes were in place, it's all the characters. You kind of let the characters react and you just let it play out and see what happens. It's like, all right, I wonder what. So very similar to how Joe has he has like a ticking time bomb, but the characters can affect it. They can affect what's going on in the world. So it's like there are things outside their control unless they act on it. You know.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Well, thank you, Shane, for joining us today. Thank you, Joe, as well. I know that you had a session before this, so thank you for making time.
I'm so tired.
We'll let you go to bed in a little bit. Before I hand it over to Shane, Joe, do you have anything you need to promote?
Well, obviously we have all sorts of stuff, Patreon and bits and pieces like that.
You have a new thing, though.
Yeah, we also do have a new thing. So we have the Patreon specifically for most things so that people can get live updates. But if they don't want anything spoiled for them, we also have a GoFundMe page because that we desperately need the funds to do this. It's a really important project to the both of us and to anyone else who has been a part of it, to be honest. We've got so many people who are beta testing it, but we need more and more help each and every day so that we can get this going. The funds are not specifically just going to be used just to help us, but also the growth of the project. So we do need to do this so that we can work on it a bit more full time, but it's also for publishing costs. So if you go onto GoFundMe page, we have a link. We have one in the Discord chat.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to have a look, we have that.
It should be in announcements, actually. Announcements is something as the part of Discord. I'm the only one that can post there, so that should be the first thing you see is Joe's GoFundMe, and if you take that link, share it with other people as well.
And also, so far, we're currently looking for players for a one-shot that's going to be coming up very soon. Villain one-shot. So far, we have only 2 definite players. So we need
me and Rorik, right?
Yes.
Item pouch.
So what's the system?
The system's going to be Animite Tales. Everyone is going to be doing what's known as the villain heist. It's going to be a one-shot where everyone is a bad guy, or posing as a bad guy if you really want to do that. You get 10 levels for your character, and what we will be asking everyone to do is come up with some sort of reason as to why you're doing this, or even just state what kind of bad guy you are. And basically, the heist that you will be doing is a bank heist. You will be trying to break into a bank, and steal riches, treasure, money, basically anything that's inside of that bank. You will get equipment, and I will be stating the equipment that you get, but for the time being, we need 5 players. So 4 players is fine as well, but 3 is a little minimal, so we will need at minimum 2 other players or 3 other players. So anyone who joins the Discord server or interested in, they can also take the spot. This
villain one-shot will be Sunday, next Sunday.
Oh, wow, okay.
The 11th. From 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Joe's time. We'll only go to about 4:30, 5 o'clock because Puzzle Travelers right after that, and I need to get ready for that.
I have no idea how long that is for me, but it sounds good anyway.
But yeah, if anybody's interested in joining and checking out this new RPG, this is a new tabletop RPG Joe and his brother have been developing over 3 years. Animite Tales is basically system of superpowers, and it is really cool. And when I first met Joe, and he said, "Oh, we met on Facebook." He said, "Hey, does anybody want to test out this new RPG?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I was looking for a new RPG system for my group. Dungeons and Dragons was it was too slow for me for one shots when it comes to encounters, and it didn't." And the Fate core system that we tried with the Lord of the Rings one was just confusing as hell. And it was story heavy. There's no combat. So I was like, shit. So so when I started playing Joe's Animite Tales, I was like, the combat was there and the story availability was there. And, I could manipulate the system to do what I wanted to do as a GM, which is Game Master. So it was really cool. So I was like, so that's the system that we're going to be using for our one-shots, because I was very impressed with it. And I couldn't find any other system that I really liked for one-shots enough than Animite Tales. So if you want to check out and play with us and see what all the hullabaloo is about. Wow, I use old words.
Ballyhoo.
Go on our Discord that was posted in the Twitch channel, and give a shout out to Joe. Say, hey Joe, I want to be there on August 11th. I want to be one of those players that test the system. It's a very new system that we definitely want to share. I'm impressed with it. I'm going to keep promoting it as much as I can.
There are two shout outs that we either need Hey Joe, or we actually need Summon Jeff.
Summon Jeff.
there's a person on the chat who will know what it means, yes. And he will help.
So, but I'm going to hand it over to Shane, who is our special guest today. Shane, do you have anything to promote?
No, I don't think so.
No, nothing? Okay, bye. No.
No. I worked on an animation for a long time. I released it August 1st. So it's pretty new. I like it. I think you'll like it. It's an animated D&D story of a Curse of Strahd campaign that I played while I was overseas, and I really, 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 really think it is super entertaining, and that's why I wanted to animate it. And I think you guys will like it too. I did the animation, did the music, I did some of the voice acting. I got voice actors who are way more talented than me to do a lot of the main characters, and yeah, you should check it out. It's like 15 minutes. It's the first episode. I'm hoping maybe it'll get you hooked. I want to see more. And,
yeah, I put that. I put that YouTube screen up, and I was like, with the mouse, I was circling it. It was the Peace Guild episode 1.
Yeah, the Peace Guild. It's
you already
awesome.
have fan art.
Yeah.
Too.
Like, what?
People are loving
that
it.
Doesn't happen that quickly, right? That's weird, right?
No, I mean, if people like it, they'll connect to it.
Yeah, and it's like better than my art too. It's like, all right, well, that's something.
Yeah, but yours is moving, so yours is alive.
Yeah, I'm just so thankful for the reception that it's gotten. People are seemingly really liking it. So, I mean, hey, if you can't take my word for it, take their word for it. People like it, so you should check it out. If you don't like it, all right, no worries.
But if you do like it,
I'll be fine.
Be strong.
Right, no, but it's I think it's really good. I think it's enjoyable. If you want to check it out, go ahead to my YouTube channel, Cool Boy Shane. The avatar is a cartoon version of me that looks better and is wearing a leather jacket and sunglasses. And I've got some other videos on there too that I referenced earlier, so you can check those out if you didn't get your fill from the Peace Guild.
And if you really love it, I'm posting this right now. Literally, there is a link in the general chat. And this is something that the 12D20 community on Discord have been adding on to. You go onto this website, you click the link, and it's a program, Agio, and you basically get to add on a drawing. And this specific link is for, let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. This specific link, I really hope there's nothing inappropriate because I'm sharing it now.
Someone defaced it already.
Oh god, I hope not. This is what happens. You click the link and it loads, and hopefully there's something there. There it is. People have been adding there. You can add a drawing. There's Aiden's. There's Bam Tato. There's my drawing. There's Item Pouch. There's Marzipan. These are people that have been adding to this. So a couple other drawings. You can see people have been adding different. Yeah, I'm seeing new dots and new stuff popping up. So yeah, go on, add to this to tell Shane congrats for his first episode. And then go watch it over and over again so we can pump up those numbers. Yeah. But yeah, it's really, really good. And that's that link. And again, that's on the 12D20 Discord channel. Yeah,
I don't know what to say, man. That's just so. I'm honored, honestly. Like, never would have expected that.
It's only going to be up till tomorrow. So go ahead and do that today, if everybody can, and because I'd like to post it on Twitter so we can keep celebrating Shane this weekend. All of his hard work over these past months and months and months of your animation and all your hard work. So we definitely want to celebrate that. And if you have something that you want to share too, come onto the Discord community and post your art, post your works and stuff like that, and use it as a way to share what you do. There's a lot of creative people on this Discord channel, and it is really, really awesome to see the different memes. And sometimes we get on the general chat and we just talk about, I don't even know what we talk about.
Yeah, that's
random crap. It's literally just a group of strangers that talk like we're like we're friends, like we've been friends for years. So it's really cool. It's a really, really cool thing. I think our next thing that we're doing on the 12D20 is the one shot with Joe. So we need 3 more players for that one. And
if you want to be a villain, stealing the likes of which that has never been seen before, join us for the villain heist.
If that doesn't grab you, I don't know what will.
Probably not. In fact, if anything, people are now turned off of it.
I'm considering it. I might have time because I have this week off. So that's Sunday.
Right.
I'm also doing Pathfinder on Sunday, so I don't know if that's. I think I'll have time for both. So it'll be a day packed with D&D if I'm able, or role playing. Excuse me.
RPG.
And Pathfinder's not D&D anyway, so I was pretty stupid.
I mean, if it helps, we could very well do it on a Saturday, because Saturday might be easier for me, but it's entirely up to whoever can do that day.
I mean, I could do Saturday. I could do both.
Normally, I can do Sundays. I just realized that this Sunday might be tricky. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I was just reading some of the stuff too. We have Pastru Bruto 874. They're pleasantly surprised with this RPG tips featuring Cool Boy Shane. So he's gonna do some design for our stream.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. That'd be, so look forward to that. Cool. Like I said, we're a community. If you have something you want to share, or you have something you want to do or practice, feel free to. Like I said, I try to be pretty chill about everything.
Yeah, people love the people.
We love the people. We love the peoples. I think, but yeah, when people ask like, "What's your favorite animal?" I actually say humans. Humans are phenomenal. Like, we're so creative. I think that's because
we are animals.
I think it's because of people I surround myself with, like Joe and Shane and
animals, my dear.
See, humans are great. But the one thing I have promote other than the 12D20 is the Puzzle Traveler will continue. I took a break from DMing for a month because I got burnt out as a DM. So I took a break and let Jerry take over a lot of DMing, and now I'm back. I have a lot of cool ideas, and I'm glad I talked to Shane and Joe because I have even more ideas for NPCs and stuff like that. Yeah, I know. When they see me writing stuff, they're like, "Oh crap, we're gonna die the next session." But that's gonna be on the 11th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Puzzle Traveler's coming back. And if you've been following along with Jerry's water heist, and you've made that connection between the NPC and my character, the Keldrick in Puzzle Traveler and Diarton Montebank in the Waterdeep, congrats. There is a connection there, and I didn't know it was going to be that soon to release it, but it's cool. So I'm looking forward to that story. I really hope you guys like that story as well. And that's all I have.